Nathaniel Lee, a lawyer with credibility, success, and experience, representing people in hundreds of jury trials. Nathaniel Lee is who you want by your side in the courtroom. You've seen the rest, now hire the best. Contact Lee, Cosell, and Feigley today. And now, to address the legal concerns of the community, Praise AM 1310, 95.1 FM presents Legally Speaking. Here are today's hosts.
Good morning, everyone. This is Nathaniel Lee. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for joining our show. Our audience in Chicago, we got a big convention this week. We're going to talk about that. LA audience, we have the superstar Milton in Chicago, Vanita Banks. And today, also the folks in Atlanta, you got a big job ahead of you in the upcoming election. So today, we have a special guest. We got superstar Max Siegel, CEO of the USA Track and Field. We also have Dean Robinson from George Washington Law School. So we start out today. We witnessed American exceptionalism. We saw probably the greatest Olympic performance in track and field that I, during my lifetime, on Ford and saw. And the great leader is an attorney, friend of mine, Max Siegel. Max Siegel, how you doing today, sir?
I'm so blessed. I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for having me. How about yourself?
Fantastic. I think, straight to the point, I saw something that was amazing. I saw a young lady run 400 meters hurdle in 50 seconds. I mean, what are you doing to keep these elite athletes at that level? What's your role in this process?
Well, let me just say, this is my 13th year as the chief executive officer. It does start with great athletes and great coaches. Sydney McLaughlin Lavroni is coached by Bobby Kersey. And so from our sports science and medicine department and high performance, it's been like a 3-year intentional plan to support the athletes, keep them healthy, give the coaches a support, competitive opportunities. So I'm really proud of the entire staff with the way that we've supported the athletes and the coaches over the last 3+ years.
And the second thing is that you've been a phenomenal fundraiser for this organization. The positive effect, will that result in some additional growth in the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. We've brought on 19 new partners, raised over $600 million in revenue, tripled our operating budget. I attribute the growth and the success of the business side of the organization to the diversity of our staff and our athletes. And so our partners especially got a great return on their investment during the Olympic Games. But on top of that, I'm getting countless notes about the cultural impact and the way our athletes represented the U.S. and inspired the next generation of leaders and athletes. So it's been fantastic.
Well, you got to see close up some of the most remarkable performances in the history of track and field. But also, quite frankly, I was shocked that we won the 1,500 meters. That was a shocker for me. I mean, did that kind of catch you off guard? Did you expect that or what?
The beauty of the games is that you have the stars that and then you have the stars that emerge that don't really come out of nowhere, but that the public doesn't know. And with Cole Hocker, seeing the performances at the Olympic trials gave us an indication that we would be strong at the games. And I don't want to keep repeating it, but it goes back to the training and the focus, and to have someone from Indianapolis represented on that stage with a gold medal makes me even more proud, Well,
we actually had two. We had the bronze medalist, and ironically, that guy home is only about a mile from where I live at. The bronze medalist, they have the whole family of a runner. But we got Milton Grimes. He's out of LA. I know he's excited to see the Olympics. You guys gonna be in LA next time around, right?
Yeah, well, don't forget to mention Vanita and I had a couple of gold medalists, didn't we, Vanita, in this Olympic? I hope. I'm not sure. Congratulations, guys. Yeah, thankfully. With 4 years, I hope I'm still here. But yeah.
Looking forward to that. I mean, it's funny because even going into Paris, everybody's focused on LA. So to have games here on American soil is something that we're all looking forward to.
Yeah. I hear LA showed off in their preview of what to expect in 4 years, huh?
Yeah, it's you know, Paris set a really high bar, and I think LA is going to step up and deliver. So the athletes are excited. LA was represented in Paris well, so we're ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work to make that happen too.
Yeah, yeah. Is it
Hey,
true
Tell
that
me,
they're going to close this city down to car movement or a major part of it for that Olympic?
Well, what winds up happening in all the Olympic cities is, you know, they build new infrastructure, which clearly benefits the communities once the games leave. And then they have a whole transportation plan. Paris was pretty efficient. You know, they'll have Olympic lanes.
Mhm.
There are restrictions for security purposes and events around the venues, but you know, it was great to see the whole LA team in Paris just observing and implementing that into their plan as well.
What about the proposal that I get which sport it is? It's going to be played. Oh, softball, I think, is going to be played in Oklahoma City here.
Yeah, you know, this games we had surfing was in Tahiti. So, you know, you try to have the core of the games in the home city and then accommodate some of the competitions where they are, but it's so complex. You know, that's a job that I give them a lot of credit trying to sort all that out.
All right.
well, I can claim the Olympic medalist as well, having been born and raised in Indianapolis, Max. And is Indianapolis still the amateur sports capital of the world?
Look, we're pretty excited that there's a renewed focus on it. We had the USA Swimming Olympic Trials here in the football stadium, you know, in Lucas Oil, which was really innovative. We worked with the state to develop the $50 million indoor track facility on the fairgrounds. We've just announced that we're going to relocate our headquarters downtown in the IU district. So, you know, being from here, being a young lawyer, remembering when we tried to attract all the sports here, you know, we're excited about maintaining that status as the amateur sports capital of the world.
That's awesome.
Well,
Because we are the professional sports capital of the world here in LA. So you got it.
hey, well, one other thing, in terms of the Olympics and looking forward, because I don't know whether or not, in all honesty, that you're going to be able to top what you guys did this year. I mean, this was historic performance. You know, I saw a guy with COVID get a bronze medal. As I was saying, how in the heck this guy's running and got COVID? I mean, you know,
Really?
it was such an exciting. I was so proud, and you know, you're right that you guys got a tough job to beat what they did in Paris. I mean, the opening ceremony on the boat. I mean, that was just phenomenal to come up with that type of. What type of plans are you involved in the planning for the 2028 Olympics in LA?
Yeah, so LA 2028, the organizing committee, they reach out to the governing bodies to get input. I have the privilege of chairing the marketing commission for the region and globally. We have 214 countries that belong to the International Federation for the Sport. And, you know, having the privilege of leading this organization, they are keenly engaged with us on planning the construction of the stadium, what the execution is going to look like. So, you know, my entire staff from, you know, my chief operating officer, who's another attorney, Renee Chube Washington, we're just ready to get going on it. It'll be here before we know it.
Wow.
Good.
Well, any further questions, Milton or Vanita? Well,
No.
thank you so much for sharing this information. And man, I tell you, I was so proud of the job you did. And I think that you've been an exceptional leader. So continue to do great things. Glad that the African-American attorney is heading up this important organization. And I was so proud to see the diversity. And as an American, it would just send chills down my spine to see how well we did in the Olympics. It just show you why we're the greatest country in the world. But our athletes just, I thought they overperformed in this current Olympics, particularly in track and field. And one other question I forgot to ask you. Why is it that the relays medal only counts for one medal instead of four?
Well, because it's one event, and two things I want to address before you all kick me off the show, and that is I couldn't be more proud of the diversity of our federation. Renee Chu, Washington, and I, the only two Black CEO and COOs out of 47 national governing bodies, and we've been pretty intentional about building a diverse staff. Where 56% of our C-suite executives are women, 43% of our staff are minorities. It wasn't that way when we got there, and we like to attribute the success of the organization to that. But to your point, the relays, it's one of those subjects that if you mess up one, we get crucified for it. But we won 3 gold medals, 1 silver, and then we had what we had in the men's. But the reason it counts for 1 medal is this one event. So they award the medals for the events, but every participant on the relay team actually gets to receive a medal.
Well, I mean, mistakes happen. I didn't think that was something to dwell on because we overperformed in so many. I thought that the 400-meter hurdles that Sydney McLaughlin ran was extraordinary. I expected for there to be a battle, and then man, she left the other runner who was the world leader by 25 meters. I mean, it was just a flat-out butt kick, and I said, "Wow!" And then the 400-meter dash, that was historic, man. I mean, that was probably Quincy Hall. I've never seen a person run the last 60 meters with that much guts, and I mean, it was just amazing race, I thought. So, I mean, it was just something that was historic for me, and I just enjoyed. I recorded, I watched it over and over again, and maybe I'm not sure what you're going to do to surpass that in 2028, but I look forward with your leadership. I know we're going to be in good shape.
Well, thank you. We look forward to appreciate you recognizing track and field, and happy to be on the show.
Well, thank you.
Sha'Carri Richardson may have something to say about that in 2028, Nathaniel.
She was phenomenal. Yeah, she was phenomenal.
As I wanted to ask you, Max, did you ever work with my friend and mentor and Dartmouth graduate, Anita DeFrance?
Oh, yeah. We get to spend some quality time together. She's been amazing, and the last time I got to spend real quality time with her was in Beijing, China during the World Championships. But her impact on the Olympic movement has been just phenomenal.
She was a trailblazer.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I look forward to talking to you in the future. Take care, Max.
Keep
doing a good job, man.
Take
care. Bye-bye now.
Take care.
Next topic. There's so many things going on, Attorney Banks. First, I want to talk to you about Chicago. The whole world going to be focused on Chicago this week. Why is that? Attorney Banks? Did I lose her? Yes, go ahead.
No, I'm not. I was trying to come off mute. Well, Chicago is ready to welcome, and we are so excited to welcome the Democratic National Convention will commence. There have already been some events leading up to the convention, which officially starts on Monday, from Monday through Thursday of this week. There was a huge event yesterday, I believe, at Wrigley Park to thank the over 15,000 volunteers that will be supporting the convention this week. And so from what I've seen, we will be welcoming at least 50,000 people to Chicago, including 5,000 delegates, 15,000 members of the press, and there will also be a large contingent of protesters as well. And so all this week, there was litigation back and forth, and finally there was a settlement of some of the demands that the protesters were making with respect to the proximity of their protests to the United Center, which is where many of the, which is where the delegate meetings will take place, and is where the evening events will take place, featuring the speeches of so many prominent Democrats. And I think we're going to see so many people of our people being represented at the convention this week. And so Mignon Moore, who is one of the most brilliant political strategists in the world, African-American female, who is chairing the convention, she has ensured that it will be a diverse convention. And they're calling it, and I mentioned one venue, which is the United Center. The other venue is McCormick Place, and they're calling the program scheduled in McCormick Place, which is our big convention hall in Chicago, as Dimpalooza. And those of you who are familiar with Lollapalooza, it's like our huge concert venue that, you know, goes on for days in Chicago during the summer. And so McCormick Place will be open to the public. She's created a more inclusive Democratic Party, and now she's leading the convention. And actually, Mignon Moore paved the way for Vice President Kamala Harris to be poised to accept on Thursday evening the nomination, the Democratic presidential nomination, and take her place in history as the first African-American and Asian-American female to become the Democratic presidential candidate. And so back to McCormick Place and Palooza, there will be training and panels and briefings, activations that will be occurring during the day. And the speeches and evening activities will be at United Center during the evening. There are 33 caucuses and additional council meetings that are going to be taking place, from Black Caucus to the Women's Caucus to the LGBT Caucus. There's a senior council. All of these activities are open to the public. And so it's just going to be an incredible time on Monday evening, and the speakers are still being lined up. But on Monday evening, President Biden will be speaking, and I understand the past presidents will be speaking as well, including President Obama, President Clinton. Hillary Clinton is going to be speaking one of the evenings. I haven't seen the schedule for Tuesday night, but on Wednesday night, Vice President candidate Walsh and Governor Walsh will be speaking. And so it's just really an exciting, electric time here in Chicago.
Vanita, if I may, Nate.
Go ahead.
Chicago Democratic Convention, I don't know why my mind immediately goes to protests. You said there were going to be protesters there. What do we expect the protesting to be like this term, and the potential for some disruption? You have any idea about that?
Yes, we've been getting briefings, and sometimes I wonder why law enforcement gives these briefings, you know, every day telling you about everything that they're doing to secure the city. But they've been, our law enforcement and federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies have been preparing for this convention for over 2 years. And so they've had preparation drills. They've are assuring us that the protesters will be allowed to protest peacefully, and that the other communities across Chicago will be secure and safe as well, not just the United Center and McCormick Place and downtown, where, of course, many of the delegates and others are staying at the hotels downtown. But I can tell you, based on what I'm seeing, that United Center area is going to be locked down so tight that we're praying and hoping that that area, of course, will be secure, as well as there will be security in all the neighborhoods across Chicago. The mayor was asked, Mayor Brandon Johnson was asked yesterday during an interview whether or not, if there was disruption, whether they would, let up the bridges. And he said, absolutely not. He says, what we do in Chicago is that we build bridges. And so he sounded extremely confident that communities would be safe. And we're just going to pray for that. But they have done a lot of work over the last over a year to prepare to secure the convention. And you mentioned, I'm reading a book called Playing with Fire, which talks about the very violent 1968 convention.
That's what I'm familiar with. Bobby Seale and Jerry Rubin and the Peace Party and
Fred Hampton.
Yeah, it didn't. It was terrible. Yeah.
And
So
you also asked me,
you're ready, huh?
Nathaniel, regarding whether or not the claims that it's illegal for President Biden to have stepped down and Vice President Harris stepping up in her place. While there may be some legal challenges, and I've been thinking about the fact that if the former president loses, that he's gonna assert that it was illegal for the candidates to be switched. So we can look for that. He's already saying that. But based on legal expert opinions, there's no legal problem whatsoever, that the timing doesn't present any legal or constitutional problems, that the Democratic nominee has not become official yet, ballot deadlines in states have not been violated, and the rules of the convention are still fully in place. And so when President Biden dropped out, he was only the presumptive nominee and not the official nominee. And so the conventional wisdom is that, and again, we can anticipate that there may be some legal challenges in some states, but the conventional wisdom is that a switch in the candidates could be made up to the convention, and that the legal arguments really weigh in favor of the Democrats on this issue.
I guess my question comes from recognition that there are pockets, even out here in California, 200 or 300 people meeting and planning and being taught how to react when the election occurs and to not accept the outcome of the election. Theirs today, going back 4 years ago to January the 6th, we saw what happened. And there is some strong organization going on to the right of our political scene to attack this government and what comes out of this upcoming election. So that's kind of the background on my question as to whether or not they're looking, I know they're looking at it, but what they're doing to protect the public in the event they attack the Democratic Convention in some way that we haven't seen before.
Well, we have to be prepared for the worst case scenario,
All right.
Milton.
Okay. Now, moving forward, Milton, you got a fascinating race in your city. Garcon, I saw in the primary, he got 25% of the vote. And so 75% of the voters voted against him. And the DA office, is my understanding that the reason they dislike this guy is that isn't he fair to African Americans and minorities and things like that?
He's trying to get a fair justice system going here in Los Angeles, Nate, that a lot of attention has to be, you know, you have an untold amount of young African Americans in prison in this criminal justice system, and he's trying to make it more equitable in the prosecution, arrest, and conviction and sentencing of minority people. So he's running it up against the DA's office because they like to charge priors. They like to elevate their sentencing with gun allegations when a gun was not discharged. So he's running into a storm here. I hope to be able to go to one of his campaign fundraisers. I think it's later today. Yeah, we got a heck of a race. He got a heck of a challenge in front of him. When most of his deputies are against him, that's where we are.
Well, what about the fact that the other candidates who opposed him in the primary, I mean, it was a long list I saw. Are they going to try to gang up and support? Isn't the guy running against him like a little bit right-wing type guy? Or
yes, he is. A little bit right-wing. Is that such a thing? Yeah. Yeah. He's for putting back law and order into the system. And at one point, they were talking about closing the county jail. It was a 4-year plan. Now it's, well, even though the population is down 5,000, they believe that there's been a rise in crime and that prosecution should be more severely for theft cases because you have a few robberies over in Beverly Hills. I'm not mitigating or lessening the effect on a person's life that's a victim of a robbery, but I don't personally know that it's what I want to say here, that it's so rampant that we need to start thinking about building more jails as opposed to finding some other way of rehabilitating and punishing the convicted. But to build more jails or prisons seems to me to be a step backwards.
So when I've been watching that race, crime has a lot to do with economic factors.
Right.
And so we spend more money incarcerating people than sending them to college. And so the problem that we're running into is that it sounds good politically, but from the societal standpoint, we have to solve the problem and not confuse the two, I think. You know, in other words, if we have a problem with crime in the community, we need to try to solve that problem and not try to, because what happened in our criminal justice system, as you know, I don't think the system overall has been fair to minorities, particularly nationwide.
Right. You know, you get a lot of attention and excitement from the snatch and grab, you know, a group of 25 or 30 people bursting into Neiman Marcus or some high-end department store and coming out of there with $1
Hey,
million.
do you let the garage door down?
Yes.
Okay,
Hmm?
okay.
Okay.
Now, I
And
apologize.
they come out of there with some goods and services, and they capture some of them, and they think it's gang related, and they want to immediately change the whole criminal justice system because you had 3 or 4 of those robberies over the year. And so all of a sudden that's justification for convicting more and locking up more people and not being so lenient in sentencing. And like you say, we still got the economic influence that's causing a lot of this stuff.
Well, thank you. Now, the big issue in terms of what will adversely affect our community is this Project 2025. I got the dean today. Dean, I saw this week there's been a lot of leakage about their plans on this. Can you give us an update on this Project 2025?
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. I have really enjoyed the program. I love the focus on certainly on the Olympics. It was wonderful, and I think it just made everyone kind of relax every day and to see these athletes, and it's leaking out slowly, but it's getting Project 2025 is getting the attention that needs to be placed on it. And for those of us who work in the community, who are community activists, who are lawyers across the board, we need to, really focus on. There's a lot of studies, there's a lot of materials out there that really help us in helping our community, helping ourselves understand this Project 2025. And so what I'm asking that everybody do, that beyond the big headlines, there's certain issues. We certainly know that that the Project 2025 is intended to reverse the advances that have been made on, if you will, what they call a democratic and we call progressive agenda, and to go back to their ill-conceived notions regarding the Constitution. Now, let me put a comma there. Some of this misunderstanding that they have is intentional. It's not because they don't know that the Constitution is to and its amendments is to provide all of the benefits of America that to Black Americans and other minorities. They just want to go back to a country where the benefits, the greatest benefits, and the focus is on white, Anglo-Saxon, male Christians. And regardless of where you might fit or not fit in there, it's clear that one of the things that Project 2025, excuse me, I have a little cold, Project 2025 authors focused on was what their constituents wanted, which they felt that minorities were taking over, if you will, America, and that we were being given unnecessary benefits. It used to be called reverse discrimination. They still call it that in places, but it's a desire to go back to a time when you didn't consider, in their view, race at all, but race was always embedded into every law, every regulation, all the way America operates. So I'm glad that it's getting more attention. If I could I thought I wanted to just kind of look at something maybe that all of your radio listeners could grab a hold of, and we could generate some questions on it. Project 2025 has a whole section related to the Census Bureau. Now we know the Census Bureau and the collection of the census, that's something that we all do as citizens, that we all encourage. All of our groups, the NBA, and all of our community groups, the civic organizations go out every 10 years and we encourage all of our communities to answer the census. According to Project 2025, there's something that's going wrong in the years between now that we have the census. And the thing that's going wrong is, in their view, a very, very a focus that is not based on the Constitution, which I disagree with, focus on race and ethnicity. And that it has allowed in Obama and then the Biden administration allowed a fixation on and putting in questions related to race and ethnicity. They want that out. They want those questions and that focus out. Because as you know, the purpose of the census is to be used by the federal government to allocate federal dollars, which we all contribute to. But in their view, it's gone too far. So they want to have a reevaluation of that. There was a decision by the Supreme Court that allowed those questions, but they want to have a reevaluation of that and get rid of it. The thing to pay attention to, because this is something that all of your listeners participate in, is that before we get to the next census, which is 2030, the agency, the federal government, has to provide to Congress and get the approval from Congress on the topics. And the next one is that on the topics for the census in a broad sense. And that would be April 1st, 2027. So we can't wait till 2030 to worry about what's in the census. We've got to make sure that our voices are heard to our representatives and in Congress to approve any new topics we want to have covered, but also to make sure they don't take out of it the recognition that diversity efforts, discrimination efforts, combating that is not considered DEI. They want to label everything DEI, that's bad. The other thing to keep in mind is that Congress has to approve the particular questions that are answered, and the administration has to submit it to Congress by April 1st, 2028. So now just think about it. I never thought about the census, I don't really think about it, and focus on it 2 years before it's done. And we sort of come out with all of our community effort and all of our great lawyering to really focus on the census, which would be 2030. The reason why we have to do it early is because we have to, again, make sure that the hard-won rights and privileges that we enjoy as minorities, as women, and they're trying to get rid of anything related to what they call abortion, which is the moment of birth, any moment before birth, and sometimes some of these folks say afterwards, to abolish any of those health concerns that would result in doctors focusing on the mother as well as the child. And so we have to pay attention to the run up to this. And you all, as lawyers, you have so many folks who kind of contact you and have some issues. We want to make sure that those issues, those needs, those protections are reflected in questions for the next census, so the next census report can reflect what the needs are. And so, for example, they also want, they really want to get rid of the anything that allows, that permits minority set-asides. Just never should have started this, which of course went back to Reagan and early administrations. Their view is that all of these are just DEI. And so that if we have, which we do, regulations that say if someone has a major military contract or major government contract, they have to make sure that they and that they set aside dollars and contracts for minority and women businesses. The view is that that's just discrimination in disguise. And they want to go back and figure out bit by bit by bit how, if you put these MAGA folks in positions of power, which they've already interviewed and have a resume book of 1,000, that you put them in the federal government and they will implement everything in Project 2025. So it's a good thing that it's leaking out. It's a good thing that it's being focused. And I am open to any questions that you have.
Well, my concern is that it seems like to me that this grand plan that's leaking out every day,
right,
is basically rolling back civil rights from African American. I mean, because when you talk about census, what they're saying, the way I interpret it, is that if you don't count undocumented immigrants, like for example, here in Africa, so we have 110,000 undocumented immigrants who pay taxes, who work every day, and they support the local economy. Now, based on the census, if there are 650,000 persons or 700,000 persons that result in a congressional seat, well, we could lose potential to have a second congressional seat out of our area because they're not counted citizens.
Agreed.
And so the minority party is saying that we're going to control the United States of America, which is not fair. And that's my concern, is the sense that what they're proposing is so fundamentally unfair. And I think that people need to pay close attention to it, because not only does the thing allows for the president to become a dictator, but it abrogates the rights that we fought for in the 60s. Now we got to relive the 60s all over again with this draconian legislation, at least in my mind.
Oh yeah, and they say they have to eliminate. They don't want those who answer the census to have options. And I guess in their view, options is if someone says, you know, I'm Black, Hispanic, or I'm from the Caribbean, any of those things. But certainly we know what the poor and the inner city communities look like, so that we don't want to lose their count, which is then we're losing representation.
You know, thank you for that semester presentation in 5 minutes, Doctor. It was a little bit overwhelming to me at first. I had to get my breath with the information you put out there in that short period of time. But how do we get this education broken up and distributed to the public to understand what we're up against here? I mean, you brought out some real crucial points about what this thing is about. It's about going back to, I recently read a book about By Hands We Now, it's titled By Hands We Now Know. I think it's by Lady Hams. I forget the author. But going back to Jim Crow law, going back to white rule, no consideration about color, we can't move this society along without consideration about color and people status.
Well, you're so right. What we do have to do is this: we have to step up, and we have to step up now, correct? In the sense that we can't wait till we have the census, look at the census. There's problems in the census, but they're already distributing the census.
Right.
So that what we do is we have the capacity We've got brilliant minds. You all have brilliant minds. We've got resources where we just begin to speak to our communities. And there's a lot of materials out that those who have been looking at this for many, many years, where we can draw upon that and speak to it. So, for example, we can, everywhere we are, we have the ability to go into, as we always do during the census, go into the churches, right? You always have folks going into the churches. We have our NBA task force, and we put together materials. We work with other groups that have really great materials, but we begin to speak about, as you say, they want to forget all of how we came here, which when I teach, I say this to the students. You must understand that African Americans were brought to this country to work for free. For free. And now, all of a sudden, we're supposed to forget all that. And all of, obviously, the things that were done to keep us from being equal and in parity. Educational opportunities, now we see with the attack on a reversal of reproductive rights, every woman doesn't have the capacity to stay home with their children. They have to work. And they can't have 10, okay? But all of those where we can speak to our communities, we are going to do that at Wiley Branton. We're taking each part of Project 2025, speaking to the different issues in a way that everyone could understand. We've got some great speakers. One of my colleagues is going to talk about government procurement. What is the proposal for government procurement? If we have no mandatory minority set-asides, we're going to be back when we were in the 50s, right? Couldn't get any government. You couldn't get, because you couldn't compete with the big connected companies, correct?
Right.
And so we don't want to lose that, but I think there's so many ways of doing this. Nathaniel has his radio show. We go into the community all the time, and we can just make sure that we're speaking to them. Sometimes it's at the highest level, when we need to come down to the lowest level, to the minority businesses. Hey, they've got tucked away here. They're calling these agencies that were created to help you grow your business and to use the tax dollars that you've also paid to help build your business, to create a business. We need to look at that one.
Okay, I'll take a caller question. A caller, you can unmute now, caller. You have a question for us?
There's some serious, scary stuff here to me, Nate. It's the silent war that we have going on that I don't know if we're prepared for.
Wait a second. A caller, go ahead. Caller, you have a question for us today? Hello? Okay, we lost her. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Don calling. Enjoying the program today. When Attorney Banks was speaking of McCormick Place, that brings back fond memories back in the early 70s when Black Expo was in fashion in Chicago, Operation Push. I can remember Isaac Hayes. You remember Isaac Hayes? He was outfitted with his gold chains, and he came on the stage, and he was singing, "I'm Guilty." So I just wondered if the former president that's running for president again, if he would appreciate that, that campaign song. But anyway, looking forward.
We digress.
Yeah, he just knows how to steal songs without paying for them. That's all he knows.
Yeah, and I just wondered, in Project 2025, I haven't had a chance to read it, but is there anything in there about the military draft being renewed that you know of?
I couldn't hear the subject.
He says
The
there is
military,
in that Project 2025 about the military draft as we knew it. I think is what he said.
yes.
But no,
Yes.
I have to look that up. I don't know. We do know that they're going to the project has for the president to put in who they call the true conservatives, put them in charge of every agency. And so it's possible, because they'll be, they'll control the federal government. If we're not careful, we'll control the Congress, that we will, and we see what the Supreme Court has done this term, get more federal judges, that we will be really battling everything. They could just say, well, we're reinstituting the mandatory draft because we just want to.
And I don't see women too, I guess.
That's right. That's right. And so we do have to do that deep dive and look at it. It generally is, it's accessible. They keep pulling it off the internet and then people pull it back up. But there is some great writing, and you could probably just put in the military. For me, the greatest fear is that as commander-in-chief, that our former president would be able to say, I'm not leaving, I'm never leaving, I don't care, call the military out, just arrest all of my opponents, arrest all of my detractors, and I'm not leaving. But more than that, we can have a large cadre of folks who come here, Washington, D.C., I'm in Washington, D.C., and literally just take over the city. Now, I did hear one of the military commanders say that the only thing that keeps the military from doing everything that is suggested is that they can refuse to obey an unlawful order. And I don't know, Grimes, if that's good enough for me.
Yeah, go ahead, Milton, and then we'll take Pierre.
Right.
Okay. I have a person of some status in the military, and he kind of smiles and laughs at the ability of Trump to get the full military to back his commands to that degree. I don't know if we can rely upon that or not, but that's my response to that too.
Hey, Pierre, you got a quick question, sir?
For the professor, have her address federal apportionment dollars for these small rural communities that use incarcerated persons from like Indianapolis or LA or Chicago, and how that helps them with federal dollars when those monies should probably go to where they were convicted at. Thank you.
And we only got 2 minutes, minute and a half, real quickly, if you can address that.
We got to break the education down that we just received to where it can be disseminated to the ground roots.
It's 995 pages, and I've been reading that, as well as several summaries. It's many of them put out by many organizations. I would even go up to www.donaldtrump.org, because the whole plan is laid out there. And back to the question regarding the military, LGBT people are going to be punished under Project 2025 because all of their protections now in the workplace and in education, they're going to be eliminated, full stop. And it's also proposing to reinstate the transgender military band.
Wow.
And
You know,
there's
this-
bans on pornography as well. And they're classifying LGBTQ content as pornography.
Yeah. I'm sitting here thinking about my naiveness about the census and all that I just learned that goes into developing the questions and the census. I just thought the people knock on your door the day of the census and ask you some questions and go on about their way. But
Well, the census is very important because that's how
very important.
the federal government is run.
Fortunate.
We get our federal matching dollars. We don't have bridges and highways, fortunately, without the census number. But our time is up for this show, unfortunately. And next Saturday, join us again, folks. We didn't get a chance to finish all of this, but we'll continue this discussion next week. We had some superstar panel today. I appreciate you calling in, callers, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to everyone today, but catch us next Saturday. Once again, we'll be dealing with legal issues of the day. Take care, everyone, and bless everyone until we meet once again.
Bless you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great
Have a great
weekend,
day.
Attorney Lee
so-
and Grimes.
Yes.